Leica M11P black paint. Let's go. So I just got this little guy, the Leica M11 Glossy Black Paint Edition. So this is really going to be a first impressions video. But people keep asking me, should I get the glossy black paint guy, or do I want to just hang on to my pre-existing M11 or M11P? So I thought I'd make this quick video just to kind of help answer that question. First, the biggest elephant in the room. This is not an M11P. This is an M11. So that means it only has 64 gigabytes of memory and it doesn't have the content authenticity chip and features of the M11P. For me, that's not really a big deal. I never really use the internal memory, and I find it kind of annoying. I actually like to be able to take the memory card out of the camera, put it in my computer or a reader. I don't like having to go through the app. Even though the Leica app is very good, I just find it a little bit clunky of an implementation. Maybe something has changed, but to my knowledge, you can't just plug the camera into the computer and get to the internal memory. You have to go through the app. I think that's a little bit of a miss. So for that reason, the 64 gigabytes of internal memory versus the 256 gigabytes of the Leica M11P is not a huge deal for me. It's nice to have in case you do forget a memory card, or you only brought my memory card, forgot to bring extras. It's nice to have that backup, but the size of the backup is less important to me. And then in terms of the content authenticity stuff, as far as I can tell, nobody's using it. And the chip only caused problems in the M11P. That camera locked up a lot more than other Leica M11 cameras. So that also not a huge deal to me. And just in case it's not obvious, the M11, the M11P, the M11D, this M11 glossy black paint, they all have the same sensor, the same triple resolution technology. The shutter's the same. Unlike the M10 and M10P where the shutter got quieter, there's nothing like that. The internals are all basically the same except for that content authenticity chip. Just want to clarify that. The way this is different from a regular M11 is just the overall look, right? No red dot, this sweet, sweet black paint. I'll show you, this is my M11 monochrome. This is the regular black paint that comes on like an M11. Of course, this also doesn't have a red dot, but you can see the difference in the paint. Much glossier, much more retro, this guy. When I do this, you can kind of see the difference, how this catches the light. I just think this looks more like an old school Leica, and I'm super excited about this, brassing this guy up and beating it up and kind of wearing away this shiny paint so it's only shiny in a few spots. To me, that's just like a really exciting opportunity. Of course, having this black paint has some interesting side effects, sort of. Like, they don't make a black paint thumb support, so as you can see, the thumb support matches this other black paint, so that looks a little bit off. And then even the battery cover needs to be glossy black paint to perfectly match. I've emailed Leica asking if I can get more batteries with this finish. They haven't responded yet, but my guess is that I won't be able to. So some of my batteries will mismatch kind of like this. I purposely bought a silver battery so I knew which of my two M11 batteries I was using. But now that I've got two M11 cameras, that's all gonna get a little bit screwed up, and I'd rather just have a couple that match this. I also just really like the look of the glossy back paint. I want more that look like this. Also, of course, if you don't like brassing, if you want a perfectly intact camera, the edges are perfectly painted, this is not going to be for you. This is made to get worn down, you know. And then the other big difference between the regular M11 and this camera is the weight. This is a fully brass camera that's been painted over with black paint. I do wonder if maybe the M11 silvers didn't sell as well because the M11 black guys were aluminum and people wanted to try that out because that was a new thing. In practice, it's only a little bit heavier, like a couple of grams or something like that. In pounds, a regular M11 is 1.2 pounds, or M11 black with the aluminum body is 1.2 pounds. And then with the full brass, it's 1.4 pounds. You do feel that 0.2. This is quite a bit heavier. And if you kind of only handhold like this and you wanted the lightest possible package, you may want to go for the regular M11. For me, I thought I wasn't going to like that extra weight, but I actually do. Since these bodies don't have in-body image stabilization, the extra weight kind of helps keep it steady at slow shutter speeds. So I'm kind of leaning towards liking the brass body better. It certainly feels heavier, more just like substantial, kind of more like a Leica almost. It feels more like an M6 to me than the original M11 did. It just feels a little more like filmy, old school with the full brass body. I don't know, could be in my head, but at the moment at least that's how I feel about it. I also like having this be brass so that I can tell which one is my M11 monochrome and which one is my regular M11 color. So if I go in my bag or in a dark spot, you know, I can tell which one is which. So another question I keep getting is, I have the M10R black paint, should I upgrade to the M11 black paint? In that instance, my answer is, you know, should you have already upgraded to the M11? For me, the only reason I upgraded to the M11 has nothing to do with the sensor inside the camera. I thought the M10R had plenty of resolution, but I hated the base plate on the M10. I know a lot of people loved it because it was a throwback to these film cameras. But I like drop these base plates and I ding them and I bend them, and then you got to replace them or fix them, and it was always such a pain, and you had to do it every time you wanted to take a memory card out. I so much prefer the no base plate version. But the real reason I upgraded was this: the USB-C port. I love being able to charge these cameras on the fly, on the go, anywhere. You plug it into the same charger that you do with your iPhone. To me, that was such a game changer. You know, I hope that they update the firmware on these so you can just plug in a computer and get the files off the camera also. But to me, that was the real reason to upgrade, not the sensor. The M10R sensor was just as good, or almost as good, maybe not in low light, but like close enough for, you know, chips or whatever they say. For me, it was really about this charging port and getting rid of that base plate. The other two places where the M11 black paint is a pretty significant upgrade is that, one, it's got that 64 gigabytes of internal storage. The M10R has no internal storage. And then the back screen. The M10R had a 1.036 dot back screen. And then, like all the M11 cameras, this guy has a 2-point-something dot screen, and you can definitely see the difference. I use the back screen a lot on these cameras. When I saw the M11D didn't have a vestigial thumb, you know, advanced film winder like this, you know, I was really hoping for this whole king experience that you get with the film cameras. When I saw that, that was kind of a deal killer for me, because I do actually use the back screen a lot, and that improved resolution in the M11s is a really nice bump and a nice upgrade. So if you need those features, you know, the memory, you hate the base plate, the USB-C charging, the back screen, I'd say it's worth a worthy upgrade. If you don't care about any of those things, the M10R black paint is just fine. It's basically the same camera as this from the outside. Oh, also I should mention, the M10R black paint was a limited edition, so it'll probably be worth more in the future. This is not a limited edition as far as I can tell. They'll keep making these, so it won't be as rare and hard to find, and thus probably won't be worth as much. Although, you know, with these digital cameras, I don't know how well, you know, this is going to hold value over 20 years as compared to the film camera Leicas, right? Technology may move on and these may go down in value. Of course, for the time being, the next 5-10 years, Leicas definitely hold their value much better than like a Sony or Canon that mass produces these cameras, because they are rare, they are expensive, and they work just as well used. Another thing I keep thinking about is that the M10R black paint was the last in the M10 line of cameras. So I have to wonder if this, the M11 glossy black paint, which is not a limited edition, slightly different thing, is also the last camera in the lineup of M11s, i.e. we'll be getting an M12 in 2025. That would be pretty exciting and sexy. I mean, a medium format system and an M12 in 2025? Woo, woo, I'm getting chills. I'm getting chills. So yeah, overall, an excellent addition to the M11 lineup. Probably my favorite of the M11 cameras. Man, I just love the glossy black paint. I do. I just love it. It's only $200 more than the regular M11. So if you haven't bought an M11 and you're thinking about getting one, I would probably spend the extra $200 to get this one over the regular M11. I probably would get it over the M11P as well. That seemed to have some problems, maybe because of the content authenticity chip. So, if I'm entering at this moment, this is what I would get. But you have to think about that the M10R black paint was the last in that series of cameras, or that generation of cameras. You had an M10 monochrome, you had an M10P, you had an M10D, etc. And then, shortly after the M10R black paint came out, they came out with the M11, like within 3 or 4 months. So, if that's true in this case with the M11 glossy black paint, which admittedly is not a limited edition, slightly different camera, not an updated resolution sort of camera. But if that still is true, that timing still holds true for this M11 generation, this new generation of cameras, then you might just want to wait and see what happens in the first quarter or two of 2025. You might get that M12. So, yeah, 2025 could be a nuts year if an M12 comes out with an OVF, EVF, like the Fuji cameras, and you get a medium format solution like the GFX. Oh boy, in that instance, Leica is kind of covering all my bases. I'm filming this segment on a GFX 100 Mark II that I rented to test Fuji's new, improved, not fixed, but like a normalized autofocus to see if this works pretty good. Would love to get rid of the Sony I've been filming videos on and just use Fuji stuff for that. I think the Fuji cameras complement Leica cameras a little bit more nicely, and it makes sort of a nice waterfall. The GFX to these. If the GFX has good enough autofocus, I don't need a full frame camera beyond these Leica M cameras. So, anyways, that's a whole other topic for a whole other video. But yeah, Leica M11 black paint, great job, Leica, awesome camera. Carry with me every day. Look forward to brassing this up. And then I often get the question of, what could they have done better with these cameras? They're getting pretty darn near perfect. These are kind of perfect little packages. That's why I hang on to these. When I switch out all the other cameras, I test all these other things. The one camera line that stays constant for me is always these M series cameras. They slow you down. The image quality is good. They're just inspiring, fun to use cameras, that really, they keep the exposure triangle at your fingertips. So you're getting a true photography experience. I'm old enough that I started with film because that was all there was. And, I love using my film era photography knowledge on these cameras and having it work perfectly and really, being in control of the photograph. So, any improvement, honestly, that I might suggest are sort of pie in the sky things taken maybe from the film cameras. It'd be nice if you could get a 0.85 viewfinder rather than the usual 0.72 that you get on all the digital cameras, or 0.73 on the digital, 0.72 on the film, but they made it a 0.85 version, which was great. 0.85x magnification on these, so especially for longer lenses, it was better. This is a 0.85 guy right here. I do wish they would just put the thumb support on the cameras, give me the vestigial film winder. I know it doesn't do anything, but just let me do the film advance. That's so satisfying. The camera's meant to kind of slow you down anyways, so give me that, It would be so cool if they could figure out Fuji's OVF, EVF thing, but keep the actual rangefinder here. I do enjoy the manual focusing experience sometimes, but it does get annoying that if I wear glasses, I can't always see the edges of my frame, and I'm kind of guessing a little bit if I'm using the OVF, and having the EVF would just be nice to flip to it, check exposure sometimes and flip back. I'm very much a viewfinder shooter. So that would be a nice improvement, but that, again, it's kind of pie in the sky. I don't really need it. Just got to think of something to complain about, right? I think the biggest thing that I could fix here are just little firmware improvements. Like I said, having it so when you plug in the camera, like a Sony camera, just a folder shows up and you can take the images off the camera's internal memory as well as the SD card without having to go through the app, even though the app is very good. Leica's app is maybe the best in the business, or maybe it's Hasselblad's. It's right up there with the best in the business. So not a huge complaint, but just a couple little things. Oh, forgot to mention, they also didn't put a charger in with the M11 glossy black paint, which is super janky,
especially since they're charging $200 more than a regular M11, which came with a battery charger.
So there you have it, just a quick run through of the M11 glossy black paint. As you can see, the paint's different, but the grip's the same, the layout's the same.
Oh, also, there is a silver shutter release on this guy rather than a blacked out one. I think I might actually prefer the blacked out one though.
This silver shutter button does seem a little looser on this camera than my M11 monochrome. Like I feel like when I throw it in the bag, I turn it on by accident a lot more, but not a huge deal. Once I have it like this, it's fine. But just wanted to mention that. I don't know if it's just sample variation or if this one needs to be tightened or what, but something I noticed. The back screen and back button layout is all the same. It really is just the paint, brass, and that's it from the M11. So, for the time being, this is going to be my everyday carry solution, this little bad boy, the M11 sweet glossy black paint. But it is still a full frame camera. It is a little bit heavy. Gotta love the Leica lenses. But it's expensive. So, it does have some competition from a medium format solution. You know, I'll make a whole other video on this, but you know, I picked this up and I'll put the weight of this versus the M11 on the screen here, but you know, I tend to prefer medium format image quality. I don't think you could really walk around on the streets with this. You know, it's a little big, heavy, and scary looking, but it does fit in my everyday carry bag. And if you put a big enough strap, you know, it's really not that bad. Of course, you know, the shutter's always going to be slower. The sensor readout is always going to be slower. So for like street shooting or quick, like inauspicious, almost like hidden street shooting, this is always going to be faster and better, of course. Assuming you know how to zone focus. And, you know, of course, this has autofocus, but it's not particularly fast for things like street shooting or moving objects. But it is nice to have. You know, manual focusing experience, obviously not as enjoyable on this, which reminds me, I didn't say this in my video about the upcoming, or the rumor of the upcoming Fuji medium format fixed lens camera, but it better have a distance scale. Not unlike these Leica cameras, so that you can zone focus and really have that dialed in manual exposure, maybe even without looking at a back screen. So, you know, did I miss anything? Is there anything else you want to know about this camera that I might be able to tell you? You know, we'll come out with a longer term review once I've had it for a while. So far it hasn't locked up like the M11P used to lock up, so that's good. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below. Let me know if there's anything else you want to know. Like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.